Hello, today we're going to talk about wars in Asia. In the 1950s, during the Cold War, the U.S. adopted a containment of communist policy because communism had spread into China in 1949. And this is some of the stuff that happened during that time. Right, before we start this part, I'm sorry if I pronounced some of these names wrong, but we're going to talk about China now. In China, there was two factions before World War II. One was run by General Chiang Kai-shek of the Nationalist Party. The other one was Mao Zedong of the Communist Party. And these two factions continued fighting against each other until Japan invaded in the 1930s. During World War II, they set aside their differences and they fought together during this point. As soon as World War II ended, the factions resumed their civil war in China. The U.S. supported Chiang Kai-shek, and the Soviet Union supported Mao. I'm just gonna say Mao, because he was the leader of the Communist Party, and the Soviet Union wanted China to be communist. So in 1949, the Chinese capital fell to the communists, and in October 1949, the communists defeated the Nationalist Party, and Chiang Kai-shek lost China. He retreated back to what is now known as Taiwan and just stayed there, basically. The communists established what is called the People's Republic of China, and Taiwan, which is where Chiang went back to, was recognized by the U.S. as the official Chinese government until the 1970s, when Nixon started trying to improve relations with China. So Taiwan, during these next couple of years, thrived economically. It became a powerhouse of industry, somewhat. China suffered economic hardships because of radical ideas of Mao. He started a cultural revolution where people that were educated were perceived as threats and attacked. He also started gangs of youth that would attack educated people, business owners, had contacts outside of China, or had prosperity. They would attack them to keep everything in check. It was called a cultural revolution. In 1971, Taiwan was expelled from the UN, and the People's Republic of China was put in. Same thing happened with the UN Security Council. Taiwan was kicked out, and the People's Republic of China was replaced them. In 1971, also, Nixon started improving relations with China so that they could bolster their reputation against the Soviet Union. You would think because the Soviet Union and China were both communists that they would get along together, but they didn't. They were actually at odds with each other because each of them wanted control of the communist world. So they did not like each other. They didn't like each other. So Nixon took advantage of that and started making relations with China, so China would side with them against Russia. He wanted basically to divide and start negotiating with the communist world. In 1978, President Carter established diplomatic relations with China. They exchanged diplomats, and Mao died who was the leader of the Communist Party that defeaed Chiang Kai-shek. I know I'm butchering that. I apologize. He died in 1976. The next leaders backed somewhat off his radical ideas. They stayed communist though. And in the 1980s, there was economic changes. In 1989, there was a demonstration for government reform in Beijing, in I think it's Tiananmen Square. That's that video you see, I believe, of the tank and people standing in front of it. But yeah, and that's China. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is the occupation of Korea. So from 1905 until after World War II, Korea was ruled by Japan. Korea is just this mountainous peninsula between China, Japan, and Russia. And when Japan was defeated in World War II, the Soviet Union and America split it into two military zones. Russia took the north part, and America took the south part, and it was divided by the 38th parallel line. The main reason here was to disarm China or Japan, like we talked about in a previous lesson, and to make Korea free and independent. But that's what U.S. wanted to do. The Soviet Union changed that, and they started putting in their communist government, and communism spread throughout North Korea. This led to fighting, basically. The United Nations tried to unite the two sides. It did not work. So the South called themselves the Republic of Korea, and the North called theirs the People's Republic. And that was in 1948 that they made their own names. So then the Korean War started June 25th, 1950. The North crossed the 30th parallel line, which divided the two countries into South Korea. The UN labeled North Korea the aggressors in it, so they backed South Korea, and so did the United States. And under General MacArthur, who was their supreme commander, who was in charge of all of the UN forces and the US forces, went to war against North Korea to help South Korea. North Korea was winning event first, and then MacArthur did some strategism of the military sort, and got North Korea to took back Seoul from North Korea and pushed them back. But then the Chinese government started helping the communist Chinese military started helping North Korea, and they basically just got back to the 30th parallel line, where the battle line was basically drawn, which was the original split between them. And in 1951, during the whole battle, MacArthur wanted to bomb China. Thankfully, President Truman said, no, you're not going to go bomb China. And MacArthur got mad, and he was brought back here and relieved of his duty. He's seen as a war hero, but I don't know. I'm going to leave my personal beliefs out of this. So, in 1951, truce talks started. They continued for 2 years. What it says in the lesson is one of the holdups of it was there's 60,000 POWs from Chinese and North Korea, and they did not want to go back to China and North Korea. They want to stay where they were at. July 27th, 1953, an armistice was signed, and North Korea and South Korea were recognized as independent nations by the United Nations. So this has been about the section Hot War in Asia. Good luck.